Our counselor, and we'll start at the overflow with on the silence, pray or as you wish, and better be able to do the business we can do this evening. Thank you. I would like to acknowledge that we're on the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And I'd like to thank the Mi'kmaq people of today for their ancestors being so giving to these lands, beautiful lands here in Richard County when our settlers arrived, whether it was 400 years ago or 4 years ago. And especially thank them on this occasion, coming up to the 250th anniversary of the arrival of Sept here. Brown's Point here in Pictou, and that those ancestors were there to help those people when it was pretty tough conditions that first winter. So special thanks tonight for our ancestors of the Mi'kmaq people. You're all Creek people. Okay, now if we could please have an approval, a motion to approve our agenda. By Councillor Boyle, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Okay, any additions or deletions from that agenda? We have a motion to approve it. We're going to approve it here in a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Are there any emergency resolutions tonight which require unanimous consent? Being none, we'll pass over that one, and we'll now go to our minutes of our last regular meeting, August the 8th. Are there any omissions or corrections, deletions to those minutes? Are there any deletions, corrections to the minutes? Any omissions, corrections, deletions to the minutes? Okay, I'll declare those minutes to be the official record of our August the 8th meeting. So we only have one piece of correspondence tonight, and that's from one of our NEC students, two of them, Annika Murray and Duncan Bannerman, for the first recent graduation. Nice to get those thank yous. Now we'll move on to our special recognition tonight. We're recognizing Elizabeth Height. So I'm going to read what I have here in front of me on Elizabeth. 22-year-old Elizabeth Heighton of River John recently attended the Canadian Charolais Youth Association National Show and Conference in Brandon, Manitoba. This event takes place annually in Canada, and the association's goal is to develop and strengthen youth involvement in the breeding, raising, and promotion of Charolais cattle, as well as to unite youth from across the country. This was Elizabeth's second time attending the national show, and she said she's enjoyed every minute of it. Along with showmanship and conformation, she also participated in judging, individual and team, keep and cull, team grooming, art, photography, and individual marketing. She placed in the following categories: champion team judging, reserve champion team grooming, reserve champion art, reserve champion individual judge for heifer calves, 4th overall ambassador, 5th overall aggregate. Elizabeth will age out of the CCYA this year, but she plans to continue her purebred Charolais herd while working as a mobile hairstylist and fishing with her father. Plans to take over the year, as well as fishing her own gas pro gear. This week, she will be taking part in the Pictou North Coast District exhibition with her heifer, Valentina, who is a purebred Charolais that will compete in showmanship and conformation. Congratulations, Elizabeth, on all of your success, and we are sure there is more to come. I've asked Elizabeth to join myself and District 4 Councillor Mary Elliott in the center so we can present the flag to you, Elizabeth.
No, not at all.
Thanks for coming.
Thank
You'll have to stick around, please.
We enjoy the exhibition. Thank you.
Cow needs to be blow dry.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for being here. Also, have tonight a proclamation, councillors, on the Right to Know Week. September the 25th to October the 1st, 2023. Whereas the municipality of the county of Pictou has adopted the principles of openness, transparency, and accountability. And whereas Part 20 of the Municipal Government Act gives citizens a right of access to information in the custody or under the control of the municipality of the county of Pictou. And whereas access to information ensures citizens of Nova Scotia have the opportunity for meaningful participation in the democratic process. And whereas a celebration of the right of citizens to access information will facilitate informed public participation in policy formulation, ensure fairness in government decision-making, and permit the airing and reconciliation of divergent views. And whereas the municipality of the county of Pictou joins all other Canadian jurisdictions and democracies worldwide in acknowledging International Right to Know Week. Therefore be it resolved that I, Robert Parker, Warden, Municipality of the County of Pictou, who hereby proclaims September the 25th to October the 1st, 2023, to be Right to Know Week in the municipality of the County of Pictou. Dated at Pictou, Nova Scotia, this the 5th day of September 2023. Signed by myself, Warden Robert Parker. That's an important document for sure. Citizens have the right to know. Are there any comments on that proclamation? Hearing none, moving on. We have a presentation at this time. I think Cindy here, Cindy McKinnon is here, and she's going to give us a presentation. If you remember at our last meeting, I think it was our committee meeting, I believe we tabled the motion to have a marketing bylaw. And so Cindy's going to speak to that tonight and try to answer questions. And also on the lack of tourist centers in Pictou West. So with that introduction, I'll let you take over, Cindy, and introduce First Wessie.
Sure. So this is Kelvin Palmer. Ellen can say her title because it's long. I'm the Chief Partnerships and Community
This one.
It's a couple of business cards. So thank you for pursuing setting this up. We understand there were some questions, so we thought we'd come and just give the presentation we've given previously. Answer any questions that you may have. So Adam's going to be behind me, I guess, and moving things along. So back in May, we had come to the mayor's, warden, and CEO's meeting and asked for adoption of the marketing levy. So the province last fall had passed legislation that allowed municipalities to introduce marketing levies. So now it wasn't a separate or standalone legislation. It was up to the municipalities now to pass that, and several are in the process of doing that. So we approached the municipalities in our region. We started with Pictou County and we've gone through to the others as well. And several of the other people who were organizations who had levies had to rescind because of the new legislation. So they may have 2%, they may have 2.5%. One had a flat rate. So those levies but rescinded so that they could create new levies, new bylaws essentially, because of the legislation where it's 3%. So it's Halifax, Yarmouth, Digby, Cape Breton, they're in the midst of doing that. And then there's some others like us who are in the midst of starting it new, but it's really not new. I think most of us are familiar with paying a levy. If you go to Halifax, you've paid it. If you've gone to Yarmouth, you've paid it. If you've gone to outside of Nova Scotia, you've paid it. So it's fairly new, I think, to most people. We want to start it for January 1st. So we have 6 municipalities in the county that we've talked to. 2 are sort of ones at their second screening, one's passed, 2 are in the process of doing it. And of course, we're here talking to you folks tonight. So we are starting that for some on January 1st, and we'll see where the others go at that point. So what we had asked in May was for it to go back to your councils, to your respective councils, and discuss it, approve it or not approve it, and then go forward with the draft. So with the draft bylaw, we presented the draft bylaw to the municipalities. We had a service agreement that was passed along as well, and any other documents that we needed to have ready, we have ready, so that when the bylaw is, if it's passed here, they're ready to go forward, and you can have a look at them in your staff. They have to look and make sure that they're ready to go and meet what you need to have met. So we have provided the draft bylaw, as I mentioned. We do want to create a marketing levy advisory council. That council will be formed once we know who's in. So right now, we know that 3 are in. The other two are in process, and of course, making the decision here tonight, or whenever you make it, after I answer your questions. Then we'll have a marketing levy advisory council who will sort of make some decisions and make recommendations to our board. There will not be a separate entity for this levy. Our board, who's already accountable for our finances, will be the ones who are making the final decisions, but the levy advisory council will make recommendations moving forward on what to spend that money on, and it will all be very transparent up front in terms of what the intent is. So beginning January 1st for the municipalities who pass this for all fixed roof properties, and those are licensed properties, which almost everyone should be by that point. They are required to have it now. So that will include all of the Airbnbs. There'll be a 3% levy as part of their collection process. We've used just for an average rate to figure out sort of where we thought we would land with revenue. We used an average of $140, which we all know is probably very low. Total for a night with the room levy of about $4.20. We looked at $165 a night. And if we go to the next slide, we'll see the overall. We don't have that slide. The next one is not probably next one. So $3,000, maybe a little bit more, that will be collected in Pictou County, which will be spent in Pictou County for those levies who are going through the process of collecting it. So the money that's taken in will be spent on the revenue taken in will be spent on the municipalities who are collecting it. So it's a simple process. It's pretty simple. The operators, it's just like remittance. Pretty much they collect remittance on the 15th. They pay it to CRA for their works for payroll. Same type of thing here. They'll pay it once a month to the municipality. There's no chasing. There's no collection. If it's not paid, it's not paid. They'll look after the part of the enforcement. There's no enforcement being asked from any municipality for administration. You also collect the paid transfer tax again, very similar to that. So the collection will come in on the 15th. They'll send, the check will be sent, or however your financial collections go now, it will be sent in with their individual and unique number that we'll look after giving them. They'll send that in with a form that we have ready to go. It's a fillable PDF. They'll send that in to you. You're putting it into your collections, and then on the 25th is what we're suggesting, but it could be quarterly, however that looks out. But then there's a check sent off to Dean's, and that's where the money goes. It's an in and out, so it's a pretty simple administration process as well. There, again, the money going out will be for the municipalities who are bringing it in, so that will be determined by January 1st. We're going to start building the process. So just a couple of facts here. Stellarton Investment Owners Property, 125 rooms. They've passed their bylaw, I believe, and the Holiday Inn Express is on board 100%, and they're part of the committee. Right now, again, it's been a little tricky to collect all of the information, but we anticipate with 15 properties, plus there will be some Airbnbs in the county that aren't necessarily licensed right now. So that's part, we're still trying to determine that because it's not, you can't just go online and get that information. It has to come out through Tourism Nova Scotia, and because there's a privacy law in place, they can't give information freely. They have to get it in another way. So there's the figure there of $325,000, and that's a pretty low estimate. We feel because $140, and I'm not sure what hotels right now they're much more than $140. 55 plus games in 2 weeks, they're charging 210 for some. So it's a pretty low estimate. So I mentioned the money collected in the municipalities here will go back out into those municipalities. If the municipalities aren't part of it, then those operators will have to pay for it. So we do a marketing project where the municipality isn't involved, then the operators there, if they want to be part of that project, they'll have to pay their portion where the other municipalities won't have to pay because of the private levy. This is all incremental revenue, so we don't anticipate any government funding changing because of this. This is all money that we'll pay in addition to what we're already doing. So our guys, for example, already happened. That is not going to be part of the levy. This will be brand new incremental money. The hope is that we have some new events at the 55 plus games, 760 participants coming for that in 2 weeks' time. This is sort of a little bit of a pilot for us to see how these kind of things can take place. And we were fortunate that there isn't a large bid fee to host 55 plus games, but we do want to go after that special music week, which has a big fee of $4,000 or $5,000. And that's probably low compared to things like blues curling events and things like that. But those are the types of things that, we get in those special music week. Traditionally, I think people come back to municipalities and ask them for their money to help support that bid fee, where this levy can help support those things and not come from the municipalities' budgets. We're also hopeful that this will attract some new visitors, some new marketing, and trying to keep things into the fall and winter months, because right now we're doing a 12-month season, but we still need some help in terms of marketing activities. So I think that'll help with incremental digital campaigns, more resources to do things, potentially hiring somebody that can do some social media campaigns, because right now there's still 2 of us doing 12 municipalities, and it's busy, especially right now because we're taking on a lot of work with 55 plus games. We're helping with the actor campaign, and we're also helping with 50-pound health things in the building. So there's a lot of projects that we're working on, and 2 of us, it's if we need that extra help with social media and things like that. So this is just a sample of some of the pieces that we have put together already. We have a registration form that we'll ask the operators to fill out so that the information is with you and it's with us. We'll do, like I mentioned, we'll do the chasing. They're not asking anybody to enforce it. And if they're not paying after a couple of months, then we'll make this phone call so we can see what's going on. And again, if they're not paying it, they're not participating in marketing levy. So there'll be some things like that that we'll focus on. The next document was the remittance report. So this actually looks a little bit more than it needs to be, and I think we could probably fix this up a little bit. So it's a little bit similar again. Once they've gotten their unique number, then that's really all they have to put on the form, because you'll have the information with that number, and they just have to submit the money with their revenue and then the 3%. So they will have to submit their revenue to you to give you the 3%. But that's sort of that's a spreadsheet that you're keeping, or however you do your financials that way. But that's information that it's passed along to us, but it's really nothing else for you to do other than collect it and send it. We'll do the other work towards that. We did want to tell the operation July. Now we do know that we talked to the other council, so we know that it's out there. We've had some media call us and writing us some questions. We haven't actually gone back to the most recent questions because we wanted to come and talk to you tonight first. We do want to have this sort of, we know that there will be some bus tours and things like that are available for 2024. And we're going to have to make some exemptions for that, because we can't ask bus tours to now turn around and change or operators to change their bus tour rates now because it is later. So we'll have to make some exceptions for that and some exemptions for some of the other folks that have already made group bookings. That will be important for the group bookings, not the individual bookings. And of course, the annual reports with what the incremental marketing activities are. And hopefully we'll have perhaps some staff or maybe as a counselor that are going to help with that advisory council to help lead the score. It will we're still gonna work out some tweaks and things going forward because we still have to figure out what those, what everything's going to look like, where it's running into us too. But we have been getting a lot of advice from Halifax and Cape Breton and Yarmouth, who we sit with. There's 4 DMOs, 4 destination marketing organizations in the province. So the other 3 have them. So we have been working with them and sitting with them and getting some advice and some news and notes. So we feel like we're pretty confident in what we're presenting, what our model looks like right now. So that's it in a nutshell, pretty quick. But if you have questions, concerns, fire away and we'll see what we can do to answer.
Okay, thank you, Cindy, and we'll open it up for questions. We know what some of the concerns we had the other evening, so we'll focus around those. Who would like to start out with a question? Go ahead, Eric.
Thank you very much, Mr. Warden. Thank you so much for coming this evening. It's nice to meet you. I haven't seen you in a while.
All the time.
Yes. So I have a few questions. I guess the reason that this has to come to the municipalities because we're calling it a tax. Is that why that it has to come through us because it can't? I guess Deans isn't able to collect a tax. It has to come through a government body.
That's right. And the legislation that was passed is that it's now up to the municipalities to make that decision. Where before, if we were to present it ourselves, we would have to go through that whole legislation process and get a bill passed for us specifically. And then every time there's a change, it has to go back through that process. But last fall, the province made it's actually probably the fastest legislation I've ever seen go through, that the municipalities can now enable the legislation.
So I guess my follow-up question to that, if I could, Mr. Chair, Mr. Warden, would be why not call it a fee and have and have control of that yourself? Why not take that control yourself instead of passing the handling of the collection of that over to the
So you
municipalities?
can see is really what it is right now, and I think that's why the province put the legislation in place to start with, because Halifax is charging 2%, Cape Breton is charging 2.5%, Yarmouth is charging $2 flat rate. There's no consistency. So from a visitor's perspective, they don't really know. It is confusing. So from a consistency perspective, if everybody's doing the same thing with the same type of bylaw, and we have used the same bylaw, Halifax. So our bylaw is consistent, and we've also sent to ammunition as well. It's really about consistency.
Yes. So you had mentioned improvement on municipalities, so it would be our accounting, our financial department that would be collecting that. How do you see that role? I mean, it does sound simple, like, I guess it sounds simple for it just to come in and it's gonna go back out, but it's never that simple. There is a lot of work that does have to go behind that. And I would say that it's not the same to do transfer taxes. That's paid online to property online when you're selling or purchasing. So it's not the same as that, I would say.
I guess if we have an online. That's how Skeleton's looking at it as well. It's very similar to that. We could have it online where it's sent through direct to them. I'm not familiar enough with your finances, but it could be sent online and then it is coming direct. You don't have to send invoices or anything, so it could be coming through online. Say it's same like in my taxes online. It could be paid online and then just sent back out into one check or one transfer.
I guess there's a concern there for me as because there's a few things. We're gonna have to put a new system in place for that because we're gonna have to internally, there's gonna have to be protocol that goes with that. There's gonna have to be a staff person dedicated to that collection and dispersal. So, you know, that's taking them either away from something else or creating something new entirely. And I guess as taxpayer money too, that does pay that. So I guess I have a little concern about that. But I would like to know what kind of things you see. My last question is Warden. What kind of things where do you see this going, this fee? Like you said, you mentioned paying for certain entrance fees, I guess we call them, to pay to play, bid fees. What other sort of things do you see?
So the whole intention around the marketing levy is really to bring more visitors here and spend more money. So things like events, because that's putting people into hotels, they're spending their money into restaurants, retail, all of that, right? I mean, you know, if anybody who's traveling with hockey, you know, they're going to Sobeys, they're going to Needs, they're going to liquor stores. So it's going to money back in. We can bring more people in here through events specifically. It's going to increase everyone's bottom line. But events is one of the big ones. And I think it's because, you know, we talked about use of social, we talked about what used to be the penalties, the boost now. Large big fees for that, and it's all coming back to you guys to pay those. So, you know, this will alleviate some of that revenue. But also things like some social media, some social marketing. You know, you'll see some great advertising happening right now where we don't necessarily have that in our budget. So things like that we can increase those pieces, and it's all incremental to what we're already currently doing. Those would be two big ones, but again, that's all, once that advisory committee comes together with who we know is going to play, they're gonna make some decision on that too.
And just one more question that comes to work. So the membership that you have now, or will they not be paying fee? I'm sure you have membership fees.
We do not.
You do not have membership
So when
fees.
it's between COVID in 2020, we dropped our membership fees because it was emergency operators. So we dropped money and we do not charge any membership fee now. Anyone who wants to be a member can be a member, but simply telling us they want to be a member.
That's great. All right, thank you so much.
Okay, and further questions, go ahead, Councilor Dewar.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I wasn't here the other night, but I was in the pension. Don't you think recently we have the 55 costs and the curling and all the big things because we haven't got a whole lot of stuff added on to the bottom line?
I'm not sure.
What do you was, well, the question is, if we're having the 55 costs for this years and we're having that big curve, well, they come here, and the reason they're coming is maybe because it's not gonna cost them an extra $25 or $40. Come to pick the county or in Nish County instead of going to Halifax.
So if they went to Yarmouth in 2021 and they paid the levy. And they had just as many people as we have coming here.
Okay, well, I didn't know that, and you're saying that, but I hate seeing stuff get added on all the time. If you're getting added on, added on, both right now, it's problems and country, yes. But I'm thinking if we do this, then we're opening the door for every other business that can do the same thing, and it just seems like everything that wants to happen has to get rushed through right at the end, like it's August 30th for the deadline. And I think there should be some more thinking going into it, because if I get a couple of bedrooms and the old house that I could rent out, I'm sure I wouldn't be telling you fellas that I'm just going to be going on. Okay?
It's happening right now. It is happening right now.
And there's really, you know, anybody else finding out anything what they're doing, right? It's private. But anyway, everything's getting more and more. They don't want, the Privacy Act don't let you do anything, but then they want to know everything. So I know you're saying, oh, what's talking about, what's Chester talking about? What I'm talking about is what it's going to cost if you're saying the $300 to help, okay? And it's 2%, 2.5 or 3. If it's 3, it's $9. They're going to stay a week. But
I can appreciate that too, Chester, I really can. But I think what we're coming from is, Halifax certainly isn't seeing less visitors because of the levy. Yarmouth isn't seeing less visitors because of the levy. New Brunswick isn't, Cape Breton isn't, Ontario isn't, Davie isn't. So we're leaving $325,000 at the border because we're not charging it. That's a lot of money that we can do a lot of stuff with to bring even more visitors here.
I know that sounds great. Under 300. Last week or 2 weeks ago on the radio, you had a bunch of federal money. You fellas, did you get federal money for tourism?
We didn't get that.
Who got that money?
I'm not sure. I don't know. I didn't hear anything about it. That's when we certainly didn't get it. I'm not
It
sure.
wasn't me, said, okay. Well, then you know because you're in charge. That's some other door. But anyway, there seems to be a terrific amount of money coming in, and given, and then there's a bunch comes after the fact, and I don't see anybody sending anybody back to us. But anyway, I got some reservations for it tonight. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Go ahead, Councilor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Appreciate that. I think it's a great idea. First of all, I know you're going to travel. You do want to make sure this is we always pay a levy. And when we understand it goes back towards the tourism, and so it's money well spent, I think. And I think it's a great idea for this circle as well, because the more we can promote what this area can do, more people will come and stay and spend dollars. So I really hope people still come this year for the reason. Thank you very much, Anthony.
Okay. We're here, Councilor Elliott.
Thanks. Rest of the any more scholar on anybody were taxed to death. I think that the small businesses should be the people deciding, not the people around the table making decisions for them and then finding out that it's implemented. But it's a great win for the businesses, which is like the large hotel, which is like Holiday Inn. And PIC is very unique, so it's going to affect our small businesses. These people are trying to survive 3 months, 6 months, and then having to remit this. I have a concern with them. Will they really get what they need out of, based on the money during COVID, it was lower. So I'm assuming it's going to be higher. It's probably, we're looking at probably $1 million, are we not? In the end of what you would actually collect if the was 3%, how much would it be?
25,000 is what we're estimating, I'm not sure.
Is that based on COVID money?
That's
That's what this.
$40 for the occupancy, 50% occupancy.
So the big businesses, it would be a win for them for sure.
I think it's a win for anyone, it's got like 55 plus seniors, pretty small operators with just 2 rooms that are full for that time period. So I think everyone wins. Maybe the bigger businesses collect a little bit more money, but the smaller ones are certainly willing to benefit by having events and other things happening.
I'm on the fence because I'm concerned about the small businesses not making it. The more we take from them and they have to remit and the more work they have to do. But I think the province is solely responsible for promoting our tourism. But having said that, should one tourist sector have control of the money or the funds that promotes tourism? What if we have another group come out and say, oh, we wanted to put Dean's is doing, and we want you to collect this for us? Like, we're opening the door to putting ourselves in the business of helping anybody who wants to promote tourism. But my question is, should one tourist industry have the control of that?
So I guess the answer, I guess for my answer would be to that is that we are the Regional Tourism Association, or isn't it? Antigonish does have another association that works with us, but we are the only one here in Pictou County. There's no one else doing tourism. They're doing things with us, but there's no other group that is doing tourism. But if another group does come forward and say that they want to have their own levy, I think the province has put that in legislation back to you folks who are representing the whole county to make those decisions for them. But I don't see another group coming forward as a tourism group because there isn't. And the small business, I would add this too. The small businesses aren't paying this out of their pocket. This is a consumer levy. So this money is going, they're charging $100. That 3% is coming from the consumer, not the small business. They're not paying that out of the pocket.
So thank you for coming in. So one of my other concerns is that people who are not going to pay this and just decide they're not going to. And if I was one of the ones that were paying it, I wouldn't be very happy. So for the reasons that I just spoke about, I'm not in favor. Sure.
Okay, thank you. And on the Councilor turn, just before you start, I forgot to announce at the first of the meeting that our deputy warden is not with us tonight, but that's pretty obvious. But because of that, I may miss somebody's hand. He's always good at checking the hands for me, so please be patient and holler. Yeah.
Thanks. 3 things were on my mind when we made the presentation. One was the administration of the tax, and that's a question I had at the last council. One of the reasons I think we tabled it was found more about how it was supposed to be collected. I have some hesitancy about this found to be a tax collector, but we are a tax collector. We collect taxes for education people as well, and there's other taxes. Anyway, you answered my question on administration. Second thing is that, to me, tourism, provincial jurisdiction, I find it trouble in it's down. I know you're looking for consistency across the board. It's still, to me, in my mind, jurisdiction of law. So, that being said, I understand what you're trying to achieve. Third thing is that I don't look at it as the cost. We say silver's going to pay it. I look at it as well as an investment. That's the way that I look at it. It's going to be costing people 3% of their bill, but you're going to take that money and you're going to invest it in the tourism business. And you're going to get some return on that investment. You're going to get a return on bigger events. You're going to get a return on more people in restaurants. You're going to get a return on more people in hotels. So that's the way that I view it. So in terms of the questions that I get, the administration question was answered. I still find it troubling that the province is down on these events. I find that troubling. But in terms of looking at it and turning it on its head, as a lot of councillors here are looking at it, I'm looking at it as an investment. And I think that $325,000 can be used to really promote Pictou County and do a lot of things for schools. So I'm in favor. Thank you.
Okay, and I have Peter next.
Yeah, thanks indeed. It's on the return. I mean, I know Dean and Steve's great. They turn around and they're, you know, they helped us, they help a lot of people. So I got nothing against Dean's. I just got some questions that was asked to be asked of is then is it reasonable to tax only the roof accommodations when there are many other tourism related business who will pay for the they just wondered if it's that there should be others taxed or
Sure, and that's been asked actually as well by quite a few other people. I think the answer that we've heard from Halifax and Cape Breton in Europe as well is it's hard to tax a restaurant because restaurants are a lot of your locals too. So you're taxing your own people, but hotels are traditionally people outside of your own county that are staying there. So you're taxing those versus your own people. That's the answer we've been given when we ask that question. So we do. And really it does make sense because a lot of your restaurants, obviously they are tourists as well, but there's a lot of locals eating in the restaurants too.
thank you. Who will pay for the administrative costs? The county or?
I don't know what those administrative costs will be until we get to chat with, I think that if this goes through to see what those costs are. I don't know the answer to that. And I don't know what the administrative costs will be in terms of hours per month, or I don't know those answers. I don't know. We won't actually probably know that until we know who's in and determine how many are actually going to be.
I guess you answered the like 140, right? They had here 100,000. You've got 350,000. I think you're saying. Big question they asked: taxation without representation. Should a business association be given taxation powers? Yes, the rest and then should the deeds be given taxation powers, I guess.
So we don't have taxation powers. Please make that decision whether there's a lot of wherever or not. Yeah. So they don't have powers to collect tax. That's why we have to go through the process with the final students.
How many times would it be taxed? Every time they go to the.
Yeah, so there's a few exemptions. So if you're here for a medical reason, if you're here to go to the hospital or to see some sort of specialist, you're not taxed. So you just have to say that at the property, and the properties will be informed of that too. Students, and anyone staying over 28 days, if you're here on a, if you're here for a extended period of time, they're not charged. If you're here for funerals, those types of things, they're all exempt from tax. So they just have to same as people anywhere now. But Halifax to say you're here because of the hospital. You're not charged. You're actually charged a smaller fee as well. There are hotels actually that are charging it right now. They're just taking it, putting it back into their own. Yeah. and something here in town as well.
Just two more left. One is how many businesses will be taxed in all of Vector County? How many that are within the municipality of Vector County?
So right now, I think there's about 15 properties that we know that are licensed fixed rate plus the Airbnbs. We don't have a solid number on the Airbnbs because not everybody's reporting, which is, I think Jessica mentioned that there are people doing it and they're going to continue to do it, even though it's not really legal, but they're doing it. So 15 is what we see right now in the county. In all of Victor County, I don't know that the answer to that right now. I can get it for you, but I don't.
Just one other one I had here, just started down, is the State of Lake Beach community will, that takes part, like, you know, they will get the money, the consent from it. This, they'll pay, say, like the 5 towns of the municipality. Is that divvied up all amongst them or whatever consent started, so yes, so they're all.
Right now, there's 3 municipalities that are in and the others aren't. Those 3 particular municipalities, those properties will have their marketing paid for what we're doing. The other 3 will have to pay twice. So then your small businesses are paying it out of their pocket, not from the city. So that's how it's going on. There's already 3 that have in place. So it's going to happen. It's just which ones is going to happen.
Great, and again, you guys do a great job and appreciate you thinking of it.
Okay, we'll go to, Councilor Brown.
Good morning. I think my questions were just answered by Peter. I was just wondering how many rooms, approximately how many rooms they would have.
Yes, just under 500 rooms.
I mean, in the discussion, just.
In the municipality, 15 properties. I can't give you a number for rooms, but I really don't to get that. Yeah, it's on a chart in another presentation. I just don't have it with me here.
And like I said, the other towns right now, there's 2 passed or 3 passed.
There's 3, and then there's 2 that are going to start looking at it right now. So at their meetings.
So let's say all 5 passed this file, and we don't. It just means that the county will not be moving through this.
Through the incremental revenue coming in, stuff we're already doing, because we're still already getting part of that fee for service from the municipality, so guys and websites.
Yeah.
But the incremental stuff, we'll just be paid to play. So the operators will just be asked if they want to participate, and if they do, then they'll be part of it, if not, then.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, and do I have any more questions? Concerns from anybody? Go ahead, Chair.
Okay, those other municipalities, who pays the most of these now? Municipality or Glasgow?
Municipality, Victor County, and the municipality, and then show it up.
So, and what are these other ones that are, what do they pay?
What do you mean?
What do they pay each right now?
Wait, over.
County and Glasgow.
The budget for the municipality is $75,000 towards their budget. So right now it's, our budget right now is about a little less than 5% of the municipalities, just because they have a lot of project money. But I can't give you the figures right now, it's just a ranking certain decision what was to make.
County pays the most.
As of right now, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, any further, Mary?
I just wanted to know that the funding that the municipality provides to Dean now through the grants, would that be affected if they become in the business of collecting taxes and not? And how does that work? Would they still receive funding from the
We
municipality?
still get the council grants, is I think what you're saying that we give each year.
Certainly still apply, whether it's, they're not, but we certainly still apply because we're not collecting tax, we are still going to be a nonprofit. And that's actually core services, which is contributing towards everything else that we're doing. Marketing levy money is incremental money. It's not going to continue to keep things going. That's what the other core services money goes towards. So if that's effective, then it will certainly affect the services too.
If the county were still giving those council grants, then our businesses or whatever would get still the benefit of that.
But that's currently being done. That's
Yeah.
right.
Sure. So my question was, will the municipality still give funds to Dean's?
They'll apply, like you said, it doesn't mean they'll get them, but they will, they apply for council grants. They would still qualify, because, like you said, that's for core services. This is for extra, above and beyond the core.
And we're still going to be a nonprofit. We're not changing any kind of classification. Just seems to be more marketing money. You'll still be the same nonprofit.
Okay, go ahead, Councilor Thompson.
Thanks, Cindy, for coming and explaining this stuff. So I'm 100% behind this. This is what the industry wants, and I think that we should work together to make Victor County a destination place. We're losing industrial jobs around here. We gotta figure this out quickly, because our economy is not growing in some sectors, so we need, if tourism's gonna be growth area, gotta put some money where our mouth is, I guess. So I support it.
Okay, any other comments? I have a few myself, because I don't have a definite word I'm gonna ask Councilor McKeel.
Sure.
Can you take over, this for a minute?
Yeah, go ahead.
I tend to agree with Councilor McKeel and the fact that I hate the word of us putting more taxes on it. It still comes back to the county in the end, even though it's for Deans or for any other group that we collect taxes for, it's still seen as a tax by residents, and as much as it's a tax for our county residents, instead of putting it out to the restaurants, it still is a tax. I'm not sure why it couldn't be a fee. I know other organizations would not charge fees other than being uniform. And I'm not necessarily convinced that we have to be uniform with Halifax or uniform with Britain. I'd rather see the association do it themselves. I also have a question to do with accountability. Because you're the only tourism association, obviously that's where the money's going to go. But there is going to be a board. I understand that there's not the same accountability for the expenditure. Some people in the county don't feel they're getting enough promotion compared to other areas, or certainly thanks to tourism are getting that doesn't come back here, even though we're doing the taxing for any accountability measure. And the other one, I did question that, the council grants, but I do take your explanation that that's for, and I think whether this goes or doesn't go, I think it's important that we, as Council Boyle said, we still work with Deans. This is an extra promotion. Right now, I know the Wellness Center is looking after this curling event that's coming along, and there are other groups also looking after some of these bigger events now. Would we get more? Well, the hope is that we would get more. You always open business, if you advertise more, you get more. But I do have some reservations, when I would like to see this be done without us as municipal government being involved. I'm not so sure. Province always seems to find ways to funnel stuff down. I tend to agree with Councilor Turner that this is a provincial responsibility in the end, but they put it down to the municipalities to be the tax collector. When really, if another group came to us, and I'm thinking of the Victor County Federation of Agriculture, or somebody came to us and said, look, I'd like you guys to collect for our body, because they do have a membership fee. Right now, if they could say, well, we'll drop our membership fee and you both collect the tax for us, then we would get more money to do the job that they're trying to do, which is promote agriculture. How can we say no to another group of businesses, which is what it is, when we said yes to this one? So that's a concern I have, as to how do you draw the line once we do it for you folks in tourism? How do we draw the line on others?
I guess I would ask if anything that streets across the country, is there a levies? I'm not aware, I'm asking that question.
The province collects a levy now in agriculture, and puts it all in one body again. It's the Federation of Agriculture. As they collect the tax, gold membership, whatever, they still require them to go in one place. In other provinces, they're like BDI, they also have a farmers union over there, so there becomes that problem of who we give the money to. But it can lead to difficulties, all I'm saying, with other organizations once we prove it for one. But again, I thank you for coming, and I thank you for the good work that you do on many other events for this county.
So now, if there's no other questions, I think there's another question asked of me. You want to know what the sign or something?
Just to be sure that I'll take over at this point, Councilor Hill.
Yes.
Just to be sure, are there any other concerns or questions before we move on? So, yep. Yes, that is on there, but you referred to, not the tourist bureaus, but you referred to, oh, it should be the tourist bureau, sorry. Okay, yeah.
There's a question about signing, about 22, but not from somebody.
The sign's not on the agenda for tonight. We, I think, delayed that for another year because there was lack of cooperation from the other municipal units. It was seen as a joint thing, and now it's more on this municipality, so we decided that it wasn't doable in this budget year. But we did discuss here tourist centers, so I would like to have you speak to that. The land of tourist centers, I know there's still two that wanted the West election, I think, and wanted the Palmer Center, but there's nothing here to say anymore like there used to be.
That's the one that.
Is it? Okay.
Literature too, yes, so that's the shared sale literature, so they do have a center there with the, if someone's there, staffing it.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, there's, and I think Councilor Kilo, you brought that up that night. Do you want to say anything on that?
Thank you very much. This is something that has been brought up to me by numerous residents. And I see it with my own eyes every day because I live right beside the Peacock Ferry. And I guess while it's nice to have things in the waterfront and it's nice to have places for tourists to go at the wellness center and stuff, they're missing it.
Oh, we know,
They're missing it.
we know, yeah.
And so I understand that, you know, there's literature and stuff, but, you know, I can't tell you how many times my fiance would stop at the gas station and say, hey, do you know where a good place to eat is? Okay, where do you like, where should we stay? And it's becoming, the residents are the tourist bureaus now, and they're giving the recommendations and they're giving directions and they're, I guess, I don't know. I guess the province kind of is not in the game of tourist bureaus anymore.
They are, but there's regional tourist bureaus too, so we were in picked up for a little bit until the town, took ownership of that.
Yes.
So then we weren't able to go back.
Right.
We did look at a couple of other properties. We looked at one just on the other side. We talked to transportation about that, Department of Transportation, but we were told that we weren't able to access it because at some point getting up to the number 6, so we weren't able to access that piece of land. So we have looked into other places and tried to create some other visitor service area. We just have a lot of roadblocks. And of course, at this point, we don't have funding to build or to have anything else in addition to what we currently have. Again, it could be something that's nothing, could certainly come out of the levy. But we right now, I'm not sure where we're going this side because we did try to get access to a few pieces of land and just we were shut in.
If I may continue, Mr. Ward,
Go ahead.
what about the boat? Have you done anything with the ferry? Have you had a partnership with them at all?
We do a partnership with the ferry, but there are no people on board from Nova Scotia side.
May I ask why?
Funding has, I don't have, yeah, I mean, we don't have funding to put people on ferry. And I know Nova Scotia Tourism, they had stopped when they closed Central here in Picton as well. BEI does have a couple of staff on there, but that's, and even now with B1 are now with, sometimes it's staff, sometimes it's not, and it's just literature there.
So what would your recommendation be to?
$1
If you had $1 million,
$6 million, I would put something on, just, I think the visitor center where it's currently at is probably on the wrong side of the road. So we would like to put something on the other side of the road. If we had $1 million, we would look at something on there. We do know that the traffic coming from the PI area was, I'm not sure now, it was the second largest entry point into the province outside of the airport. So it's busy, it's active, and we're able to really put people throughout the region. It's just the situation where it's purchased and we didn't have access to it anymore. But I think it would be on the other side of the road. I think would be an ideal location. We did try. And then I think there is someone else now who may have some property somewhere around there as well that we could potentially look at that. What's best to do?
great, thank you.
And I mean, the province seems that should be playing a role in, you know, these tourist bureaus, they seem to be disappearing.
I will interrupt with everything that they do. We do have funding to pay towards the visitor centers that are currently open. So we do get funding from them to pay for staff to go into the centers that are currently open right now.
Not for vacations, not for.
Not for you,
vacations.
not for you.
And when I go somewhere, my family, I look for, where do I go to get? I don't know if people are gonna find it at the wellness centers or even at the Irving. There may be some times pointing there, but not the easiest place to find is when you drive into a separate building and when this is the source of information center, I'll get here to get the information to go in.
That's just understanding, like, I know, my daughter and them, they take their cell phone up, they can tell where every establishment is, every hotel is, everything, so how much is that turn around is sort of something like the mail now, everybody's emailing, so the mail's becoming a thing of the past.
I think there's a little bit of both. Of course, the younger generation is coming up with their phone and they use that for everything, but there are people still might have this yet. And we still continue to print our visitors guides because the operators are saying they're still using them. We actually had an operator in Geisberg, which is called last week, and said I went through everything you gave me, I need more. So there's still a lot of people using them. I think their age is certainly, it depends on the ages and things like that, and that's with everything. But people still do, and people still do want this. So not everybody does, and everybody has their own opinion on that too, but some people still want to have that paper copy and know what they're doing, especially if you're going into a hotel or a campground or whatever, and they're looking through things and saying things, they still are.
Okay, if there are no further questions, I don't know how we're going to conclude this tonight. Were we going to make a motion or are we just going to take this for information? How do we want to proceed? There was some people probably waiting for a decision on what we're going to do here. Okay. If everybody's in agreement with that, I don't see anybody's hand up, so that's what we'll go with, and we'll thank Cindy and Joe for coming in tonight. Okay, we'll move on to number 9, resolutions. First one is Council Turner and Jessica Service Grant.
Resolution be it resolved that the council for municipality, county, will adopt the following resolution for the district. 6, Stillman Cemetery Company, $5,000 for the contractor. A total of $5,000. District 8, Mountain Cemetery, $3,488.82 for maintenance and markers. Abercrombie Cemetery, $9,000 for maintenance and markers. Abercrombie Community Center, $7,456 for maintenance and center. And Mount Williams Cemetery, $5,056.85 for maintenance and gate repair. For a total of $25,001.67. Dated in Picton, Nova Scotia on the 5th day of September 2023, signed by the South Larry Turner in Central Park Council.
Okay, approved and seconded the municipal service grants. Are there any questions on that? Not, we'll go for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carried. Councilor McKee, take over here for the list.
Sure, no problem. Next, we'll move on to our provincial hosting grant resolution. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you. Resolution being resolved that municipality county have to adopt the following provincial hosting grant. Northern Nova United, $250 hosting U15A provincials. Dated Picton, Nova Scotia, the 5th day of September 2023, with us staff, Councillor Raymond Palmer, second, Councillor Dean Parker.
Palmer. Any questions or comments on the resolution? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded nay. Motion carried. Next, we have the Ivor McDonald Memorial Arena funding. Councillor David Parker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Whereas the Ivor McDonald Memorial Arena must replace the placement located in operating for 2 years. Whereas District 13 Recreational Plan Commission has applied for funding. West Coast plan to various levels of government, including municipalities and county sector. Be resolved, municipalities and county sector agrees with grants District 13 recreational planning commission, $150,000 on its operating reserves for the Ivor McDonald Memorial Arena, virtual noise line. Dated Pickle S is the 5th day of September. The 3 book of self council second by Councilor Plum.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Carver. Any questions or comments on that resolution? Yes, go ahead, Councilor Carver.
This is a comment, first of all, that is, that every consistent representative of the council. We don't support our hockey arenas, not a lot either. First comment. Second comment, of District Government Ontario. The tiny community of Linwood, which is 108 residents, and I would suggest the average assessment committee is probably $1 million. Remember, guys are higher than that. And this year, they had a 14% increase in their tax rate and a 11% increase in their tax assessment. 25%. $1 billion. Do that. 7% of that was to build a new arena. Now, this is a very, very rural area. Small villages, but less than small, but really not cheap. We're only paying $150,000 for once every 40 or 50 years. Really not cheap. Those people pay somewhere between $7,000 and $15,000 a year probably. It's not the big or the whole big.
Thank you, Councilor Carver. Any other follow-up questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Councilman Day, motion carried. Back over to you.
Thank you for filling in for me. Now we're moving on to the milestone recognition policy. Councilor One.
Mr. Chair, this county picked a milestone recognition policy. Purpose is to establish a uniform policy to recognize significant milestone events celebrated by the residents of the municipality. Policy number 1, showing the policy of the municipal council upon request to officially recognize the following significant milestone events: 80th birthdays, 90th birthdays, 100th birthdays, 100 plus birthdays, 50th wedding anniversaries, and 60th wedding anniversaries. Number 2, to recognize placement in a national event, including sports, culture, or an academic institution. Number 3, to recognize heroic events in the municipality, county of Pictou, by individuals or community groups. Number 4, to recognize community groups who have existed for A, 75 years, or B, 100 years. Number 5, to recognize individuals' long service in community organization, minimum of 35 years of service, in awarded in 5-year milestones after 35 years. Frame certificates commemorating these events shall be presented to the residents by the warden and/or council member. Wherever possible, requests for certificates should be made to the administrative staff at least 3 weeks before the event to allow printing and framing. All former policies, congratulatory letters, or messages commemorating milestone events are hereby repealed. Dated at Pictou, Nova Scotia on this 5th day of September 2023, signed by myself, Councilor Deborah Watson, Secretary of the Council.
Second.
Here's the reading of our new policy, revised policy, milestone recognition. And moved and seconded. Are there any questions on that policy? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor? Against? Motion carried. That's the end of our resolutions for tonight. And the next item on our agenda is the East Pictou School demolition update. The Logan McDonald from the ministry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to report that the demolition work remains underway at a very quick pace. Work has been successful in getting significant removal of asbestos and other hazardous materials inside the building. I just finished having bi-weekly calls with the company, budget environmental. They did indicate that there is more hazardous material inside the building than originally anticipated. They have reached out to the province to look at its alternative, or alternative plans, I guess, around disposal. There's been no indication whatsoever that it's going to cost any additional money. And they actually believe that they're on track to do the major demolition earlier than anticipated. They wouldn't give me a hard deadline, but one day in the fall, they're likely driven by full speed. Yeah. But yeah, I'm pleased to report that they've indicated that they believe they're ahead of schedule and the costs appear to be consistent with our original plan. They're requesting any additional costs, and we have notified them that the school is starting back up tomorrow. They've taken special precautions to make sure that the site is secure, and we'll be providing their number of contact information to the school if any exists. That's the basic points of the report. Happy to take any questions.
So we have that date there, back, we talked about a date, but the issue said it's on track, if anything, it would be similar.
Yeah.
Can you remind us of what that date was?
I forget the exact date, but it was going to be early New Year. Because they believed at the time that they needed to take the school down, and we had to come back after the ground hardened up a little bit again to finish the work. But now they believe that they could get it done.
Or the end of the year. Okay, I'll open it up then for questions. Go ahead, Councilor Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and thank you for the report. Logan, I'm pleased that you were able to share with us a positive report. There is a lot of concern and interest in what is happening at the East Spectral site, and I'm pleased to hear that demolition is underway. I just had another question which came across my mind is the garage behind the school. Is that included in the demolition project?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions for the workshop? Sorry, what did they didn't have the name right now.
Thank you, Logan. I'm pleased to hear that. I'm not pleased to hear the building's being torn down, but has to be done. It's not usual. Pleased to hear that it's on schedule and hopefully on budget. The material, think in particular of the masonry material, right? Water and concrete. Where is that going to be disposed?
The material that's not hazardous is being accepted by our landfill. However, some of it's being kept on, the majority of it's being kept on site. So it's going to be ground down, and we're removing material to about the foot below existing grade. It will be buried and leveled off to grade, but the vast majority of the material is going to be ground and kept on site as foot material.
Yep.
Okay, or see any further questions? I have one more, I guess, in this. How secure is the site now? You talk about schools who started back and wander sometime. Is it all fenced around or?
The rear of the property facing the river, there is a section that's not fenced on that side. And some folks, I guess, have wandered up while hiking in the area and have had to be told it is such an active construction demolition site. So everybody's been very cooperative. So that's been positive. There is fencing around the remaining open area of the site, and the company uses good standard safe work procedures to clear the site before and after, before the day starts. But there is a portion.
It could be accessed if somebody wants to access it, night visitors or whatever, could access that site.
Yes.
Thank you. No further questions. We'll move along to the next item on the agenda, which is municipal service exchange update, and Colin's going to do that one.
This is more just information that was sent out last week from the province, kind of giving the background information on roads and where the recommendations came from. So it's more just the background information seems to be coming out after that. But anyway, so that's all this was. The last meeting we did. Which was made to send letters to the NLAs and to NSFN, so that was done. Basically expressing councils that verbiage should be tabled and further studied. And then I sat down just so on the whole process. So those letters were done. And I guess the next step, following the last regional meeting, I guess the next step is what we heard document will come up from the province. Should be this week or next week. They did say 2 weeks. So and they count the clock starting. Could be this week or next week. And they haven't really provided a deadline on when. Like, it gets back on that thing. So if they're looking at the fall legislature, I'm not sure if notice has been given that coming back, but it's typically the time frame. So I guess
and I just add that at our last meeting, you know, I said that I would go on the phone conversation, or whatever it was on Thursday, I believe, and make it abundantly clear that this county was not interested in taking over any of the provincial roads that would lead to disaster. And I think I know Deputy Warden Murray was there, and he repeated the words that were said here. That if you want to bankrupt this municipality, this is the way to do it. And this municipality has been district for well over 100 years. And, you know, it's a provincial responsibility, these roads, and that's the way it should stay. That's the point I tried to make. And in that regional meeting, I will say that the majority feeling of the rural municipalities there, you know, were the same as ever. That, you know, leave it alone. And they're saying they were trying to be even with the towns, the urban municipalities and the rural. The towns needed some help with their roads and process stuff, but nobody was against that. You know, giving them that help, but in somehow trying to balance it with the rural municipalities, they went almost the opposite way to make that it would be a tremendous burden for this municipality as well as other rural municipalities. And so I did meet with the deputy warden and CEO that Friday, I think it was the day after, and we decided to send the letters. You know, I got them to the wrong places to get originally, but the CEO got that straightened out, thankfully. But not to make it a big public issue right now, until we see what comes out in this, what we heard before. If they decide to take section B of the roads report and put it back into what they call category A or whatever for further study, then we didn't want to ignite something here that didn't have to be ignited, I guess. But if that report comes out and leaves that section in there to go to the fall sitting legislature, then we have no choice, I don't think, but to make this a big public issue, because it would just do so much harm stop a lot of the good things that we do because we have money left to do them. Once we look after the roads, so we're very hopeful that if they listen to what they heard, everything they heard, certainly in our meeting was, very much put that back in schedule A. And if that happens, then we'll need to move to the next step. If it doesn't, then we'll take it back to this council and decide what our next move is. So that's sort of how that unfolded. If there's any questions or on that, myself or Tom can answer. Don't see any, so we'll move along. We've got a few more items here. We have our capital budget survey explanation. Got this on our last committee session, I think, and I think Mr. Collins just has some further information in, so we lead up to doing this survey.
Sure, so printout has been provided to everyone. So survey is pretty basic. The first page, you just pick who you are and hit next, and we'll take you into survey. So that one, hopefully will go smoothly. So when we move into page 2 off the survey, it's the large scale projects. So they are there. There's a bit of a summary with each of them from kind of the key points that were on the report that's at the last committee. So there's the 2 projects. The way Survey Monkey actually does it now, you used to be able to put 1 and then 2. Now the ranking is you press the arrow. So if you want municipal building expansion as your number 2, you press the arrow and it'll drop down below Churchill Water. So you move it to where you want it on the list. That's the way they do it. There's other ways that it could be done. You could rate it by something like that. But the way ours, it's a ranking. It's the way the policy is. So that's the way it could happen. The same with the smaller scale projects. You just press on the little box that's there with the arrows, you can move it to where you want that project at with the various projects that are there. So there's 6 of them there. So if you want municipal administration renovations, that's your lowest priority, you just click it to get it down to the lowest on their list. And same with the sidewalk infrastructure. So you just click where they are, where you want them priority. That thing. The Westfield Road sidewalk at left-hand sidewalks, it is actually a major project, so we could move to major projects. So that would give you your ranking in each of the categories. The next question will then be, how do you pick which category? So the way it's going to work is you're going to have project potentially make it from large scale, then you'll have top priority and small scale, and then one sidewalks. So then how do you overall rank those? One of the thoughts, as I said, when we put this together was, should it be kind of a 2-step process? And that your first question is, do you think project should proceed? Yes or no? If yes, then rank. Or on deferred, I think this project should be deferred. Not sure the simple dividing it up into the various categories is going to give you the results.
I asked CEO, some of the decision has to be made on the cost of these projects. So how reliable are those figures? I believe the figure that we had last time for Stanley Drive paving was half of what it is this time. And wanted to do with the Blue Acres sidewalk at 300,000. How reliable is that that couldn't end up being double that or whatever. Somebody talked about more walls or more containers or whatever, these, islands and stuff. Is everything in there, or, that's one question I have, is how reliable the numbers are. Some of this has to be based on cost of doing it.
I might, get Logan to kind of comment on some of the pricing, but I guess at this point, this is based on the information that we have available as of now. So like when we look at the Churchville water extension, so that's based on, that was a couple of years ago, 900,000. So that cost has been updated to really reflect the unit costs that we got with Salem. So it brings Severe into a more current day price as opposed to where the original estimates were. And also building in a contingency, because there is a lot of, there's no design on that. So we really are at the Class B estimate. So you would use typically anywhere from 25 to 50% contingency. And as you refine your design, that's when your price comes in. So I guess that would be my comment. It's based on what we know today.
I'm referring to change 2 weeks, but like, double 50% or 100%, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree that it is sort of a staggering number. It's staggering change, but that's the cost. Asphalt is now. Asphalt specifically has gone 3 to 4 times in cost. And the other municipal units in this, I thought that as well. I had to cancel the projects because of this cost. The cost of asphalt is not considerable. To the point that per cubic meter, what we're finding is that's more expensive. Often we believe that. And I'm happy to talk about any of the costs in here. The costs for those municipal building, whether it's the expansion or the renovation, were based on costs from our architect. So we feel confident in those prices. Costs related to the water utility meters, feel confident in those prices. I was speaking with 2 of the main suppliers last week, and they're confident in those prices as well. The different improvements for the different mechanical component, lift stations, those type of things. We're fairly confident in those prices. We're dealing with old equipment, so sometimes you do a little better, sometimes you do a little worse. They're taking equipment apart. But I mean, those prices are all where we think they're going to be, and pumps and things like that have gone up in price quite a bit as well. Obviously, the big one, standard, for example, is it feels that that paving is due to the cost of asphalt. The other items, Blue Acre sidewalks, the number that we have in there did account for some walls. We won't know what that looks like until we finally get improved design from the province. It probably means some additional costs, possibly in the consulting stage. We can attach with our designer with that project, so we overestimated that a little bit. We won't know until we finally get an improved project, which ultimately has to get approved by the province. And we have to deal with all kinds of different things that they bring up. And that's similar to the other sidewalk projects as well. We have a pretty good handle on the design costs and the construction costs. Really depend on what the design yields and what approvals we get.
I'll open it up to any further questions on the information that Brian has given us, and I think he made a suggestion that perhaps we decide, should we do this project or not, or do we just say we're going to do every project and rank them? How do we rank them? There are still some things that aren't known here, how we're doing this. I think, at some point, this council has to decide if a particular project we want to do or not. Then we rank them. I'm just afraid that in some cases we don't have, a survey done with the residents to decide if they want it or not. That would be one. There may be others in there that we haven't, surveyed the residents yet, and we go ahead and put them as our number 1 or 2 priority, even though the, like I said, when they're outside of paying their 50%. Go ahead, Joe.
Thank you. Yeah, and as far as the public surveys, we did get a Stanwood Barking Crescent public survey last week. We asked for a 30-day turnaround time. We have received some responses. I'm not going to share with them. Sway anybody else's thoughts towards that, but we do have those out fielding questions for residents there as well. So, but I agree. I think anytime you get the public's input in something projects, and especially if it's obviously needed, but we're ready to put out public surveys. We can turn those around. I think 30 days is a reasonable time to get answers back to this council. But if you have to put any time frame on it and turn around quickly, more quickly.
You were the CAO, should we be voting on these? It's my question, not knowing if some of them are be approved by the public yet. We haven't done that step.
I guess that's a question for council. Some of these are operational.
Oh, yeah.
Their nature, they just have to have, we can't, the different lift stations, obviously we have to do, but then some of them we do have straight costs. What we think is good cost certainty at this point. So ones, things that would be out there for residents. I don't know if you want to open it up to every sidewalk that's out there that's just being suggested, under some sort of a take on who would use them, that kind of thing, but I think we have some projects that just need to get done. Or need to get proposed to some mission. So.
Okay, I'll leave it for somebody else. Anybody else? Go ahead there. Oh, and I'm just Larry.
In terms of my making the decisions on these capital projects, I'm gonna wait my decision on recommendations from staff. As Logan had mentioned, there's a lot of operational things that are in here that I don't have a clue of. And so I'm going to say staff is making a recommendation. We've got that, get that list from you guys in the last meeting. So yeah, the decisions that I'm going to be made particularly weighted towards recommendations of staff. Okay.
And Darrell?
Thank you, Stuart. In all honesty and transparency, I find this one of the most challenging exercises is this capital project. And I just feel that, like, it could go to sidewalks, for example. We see that liability, we talked about liability issues for 2 of our sidewalks. So for me, those are no-brainers that if we're opening yourself up to liability and they need to be done. I would like to see, like, do we have a list of all our sidewalks and their conditions? I would like to see that so that we can plan for the future. I feel like we need an inventory. So for me, seeing something, we have to maintain what we already have before we can go build new, right? To me, that is common sense. And to further your point, Mr. Warden, that you made there, we have 2 projects on here that community support has not been defined. So, I mean, it's not that I'm negative about the projects, I'm not, and same here, like, on the Little Harbor sidewalk, Nova Scotia Public Works has stated previously that they would not allow a mid-road crosswalk in this area. So does that mean that, although, like, I'm confused because I find it hard to rate projects, even though that maybe the residents want them and they've been here. I find it very hard to rate when we don't know what the state of what we have. It needs to be fixed or the situation, if you're deteriorating, what the cost is on that. And also, another thing I find challenging is that it is, you know, maybe a budget number might be more helpful because, you know, there's quite a few littler projects, I'll call them, you know, 150, 75, that sort of thing. Or we could do a larger number of projects compared to a larger scale project. And again, with the Western Road sidewalk, physical limitations, so I guess I'm trying to say is, it confuses me sitting here tonight with some of these projects, because although we as representatives for our district may want them, the residents may want them, but if they're not viable projects, I don't know how the list gets made. I guess I'm confused by it. If there's somebody who could shed some light on that, that would be great. Thank you.
So I think you can create your priorities, projects. And I think we'll use Western Road sidewalk maybe as the example. That may be your number one priority. However, there may be a bunch of hurdles in the way that physically it can't be done. Or you can't get an approval. It could, in theory, still be your number one priority. But until we can check all the boxes and funding and on approvals, because you're working with Department of Transportation's railway infrastructure, until you check all those boxes, that project won't proceed. But it doesn't mean it's not your priority. I think so. In some of the internal projects that are here, listed here, are projects that kind of from a staff perspective onto that stage where we feel they need to press such an answer. So there's a couple of farther side of pumps that we feel are now getting to the point that whether it's this year project or a next year project, that it should be at some point prioritized by council and say, yes, we do need to invest in that. And saying that the sidewalks, there's 2 sidewalks here that have been assessed that have deterioration to that it's need to start addressing that. The longer we let it go, the worse it's going to become. The maintenance is going to become harder, things like that. So
and stand for reliability. One, there's liability if you don't fix what we have to show, and if we put in new infrastructure, there's also liability if people have to, in case everyone has to cross that street. If we're leading them to the destination, and then they have to cross that street, we would have some provincial help to change those rules somehow. That's puts us in a difficult liability. Any of these things puts us in a difficult liability because we have to look at both the new and the used. Go ahead, Councilman Avery.
Thank you, Board and Director. I think I'm a lot like Carol. I'm not an engineer, nor am I a construction estimator. Most of us have the ability to see when there are issues and problems. It's really, really difficult to rank. There's one question I would have. What happens if a project comes in at 2 or 3 times those estimates? So when we back up and reevaluate, or we just bulldoze it in? Each of these private developments will be voted on here at council independently. Is that correct?
yeah, so basically as we form our capital budget, we have an estimate. And then as we move the project along, so we'll pick up sidewalk X and we have an estimate of 250,000 and it comes in at 3 million. We have to reevaluate. Right, so council would have that ability, as the project moves along, we would refine, cost estimates, so if our final estimate before we issue tender is, like, we have 300,000 or 350 in, the final estimate before tender is 500, then that come to council and say, do we go to tender? Knowing that our estimate is 150,000 over what we currently have budgeted, and how do we come up with that 150,000?
So we, if I may, we would have the right, you bring us a capital budget, it's got 9 items on it. We'd have the right to say that one there for a whole lot more than been expected. So I move that one be removed. We vote on that, and we vote on the bad, for example. You still don't get final say here, but well, we're just providing guidelines for this work.
Your capital budget is your estimate of what you're going to spend. So throughout the process of the project, as we are getting closer to putting it out for tender, or we think the costs have escalated, then that council needs to say, yeah, you should the tender, or no, we're gonna have to defer that because the cost of it is 50%.
All right, thank you.
Okay, that's the last meeting I've got. Go ahead, Councilor Thompson.
Just on liability, it's not just the existing sidewalks that they have a crack or a dip or whatever. That's a liability. We get sued in waivers. And somebody got hit by a car because they were forced onto the road. So there was a lawsuit. So it's not just the existing, we have a liability there. It's a huge liability. I'm not, and I guess I'm not a huge fan of the way we're doing this. And I guess I think one of the things that people are struggling with is where's the money coming from? We have reserves that can cover a lot of these small projects. A lot of these projects have been on the radar for 10 plus years. I know long before I got on council, we were going to get water meters in all the service areas. That never happened. Those get put up. We got money. We got money. We got $1.1 million from provincial government, one-time grant. Look after some of these capital items. We have gas tax money, whatever it's called. We have gas tax reserve that keeps accumulating, but we don't spend it on anything. We have all kinds of projects, smaller projects that could cover. So I'm wondering if there's some way to put some context into the budget money that we have. These are direct grants to our municipality to then again to spend in our communities to make them better places to live. That's what our other levels of government are hoping we do. So we should move forward on some of these projects, but I think there's a lack of context with the numbers where the money is going to come from, and maybe that could be drilled down a little better so people have better understanding how this jigsaw puzzle comes together. But I'm not a huge fan of this survey. I've said in the past it's for some reason we went this direction, and nothing ever gets filled up on our 5-year capital plan. 5th year present capital plan was passed about 2 years ago. Has nothing on it because of this process. So, and as far as surveying residents, for instance, Churchville, water in Churchville, I think we should, before we move to a design stage, we need to send out a survey saying, do you want water? That's what should happen. There's a whole policy around that, but we deviated from that policy again. And then if the residents want that service, let's investigate a design for it. Is it feasible? But there's a process involved in it. You got to bring things along. You just don't, the design work is very important to get pricing. So, and I'm not a huge fan of this exercise, But again, we have liability, not just for existing sidewalks, we have liability for other ones as well, so.
Thank you, Councilor Leesburg.
Just one point out, lawsuit that Councilor Thompson mentioned, 2 acres, we were found not liable because of sidewalk. If you have a sidewalk there, it's not maintained, then you have liability back in that area. No sidewalk. Therefore, you are not liable. But we have liability for what we do, but we can be not liable. Sometimes we haven't done. We can't live with fear of the word liability.
Okay, you don't want to get down into the weeds too much here, but, obviously there's some more work has to be done, on this. I think if we go back to our CAO's first question, is this something council wants to do or should it be deferred? You know, we could bring in next week a sidewalk or somewhere in Caribou Island and say, just because it's brought forward to here, doesn't mean that it's something this council thinks we should do. So we have to decide that before we go just ranking everything and say we're gonna rank them all. We have to decide first if there are things that we think we should be doing, so it might take something different than what we got here, I think, in order to get to that. You know, we may not be, I don't want to put it off, I don't want to rush it either, so that we're trying to guess at what should be done or shouldn't be done here. I don't feel, what I'm hearing from most people, is they're not totally comfortable with what we have right now. So we may have to rework it some.
I guess, should it be a two-step process? First, project should proceed or be considered for prioritization. So that would in essence be one survey. It's a yes or no answer for all of them. And then if you have 50% plus one that say the project should at least be considered, then council can prioritize and rank them. And then if it's on your plan and then you prioritize them, the financing recommendation will come from staff. Like we will look at, if you have 10 projects and $20 million, you come back and say this is how you can reasonably fund that $20 million. Then council has to agree, yeah, we're going to go that route or we're not. And you modify your plan. So we can do it as a two-step process. We can send out a survey, just have all the projects listed, and you can respond yes or no. You believe it's project worth considering, or it can be deferred. And so yes, it can proceed, or it would be deferred, and bring back at the committee 2 weeks time the results of that. We can show you what that looks like, and make the process to be refined again.
The work our way through that. Go ahead, there.
I guess the danger that I see in it is that, and I'll just reiterate what I said in terms of relying on staff's prioritization, is that it becomes political, and that the councillors, if I was going to prioritize anything on this list, it would be probably I'm going to prioritize them. That doesn't mean it's the most urgent job. There's a lot of operational things in here, as Logan had mentioned, that I don't know anything about. How am I supposed to know anything about the station? I don't know anything about that standard paving. So I'm going to rely heavily on the recommendations of staff. They're the ones that live it every day. The public works people are out there working on this every day. They're close to the projects, they know exactly the problems, and I don't know them. So I'm just stating that I hope it doesn't become political. I know that the councils are going to look for things that are in their particular districts. But I'm just going to have to rely on recommendations of staff.
actually could ask staff to, those ones that aren't, that are operational, that they know a whole lot more about than we do. And, that those ones, that they let us know which ones that we have to have this done this year. I know we're going into a meeting later this week with some phone meters or whatever, and those ones, we did put some of their budget this year, and the rest has to go in next year, or we're gonna be facing big penalties. So something like that perhaps, everybody's not gonna know about. Maybe we need to be told that before, we decide whether something goes ahead or not. We may say, oh, those ones are just repair maintenance to those later, but they're not. Something we can necessarily put off later, so, perhaps as Brian said, ranking whether these ones should be done or not, those ones that are maintenance really need to be, some information on them, I guess, from our staff. Okay.
Yeah, we can break it down that way. We can pull the ones that are more operational, put them in that category. Separate them out from the other ones that are expansion or new projects. So we can break it down that way. Same question, do you think it should proceed or not? Yes, no. You think, and then go from there. It'll break the two projects, it'll break it down into two categories. If then.
And then we'll discuss it again in our next committee meetings. So I'd like to move on now if we can. We have a couple more to go, and I know there's some people that have children or grandchildren that have school tomorrow, or if I get home before too late for the kids are all did. Could be by now. And sometimes driving up to the one them to be awake for sure. Let's go on to the rural internet update, and Brian Bell being very appreciative. Everybody should have one of these that were handed over ahead of time.
Okay, so just on the overall contribution agreement, the federal ISED agreement was completed in late August, and the first claim has been submitted to Industry Canada for review, and our reporting requirement is actually at the end of September. Because the agreement is signed, but it had dates based on when it was announced. Or actually not when it was announced, when we were given notification of the money. So it actually went back a year. So as soon as the agreement was signed, a bunch of things became due. Type thing. So first really due at the end of September. For that, the first claim has been submitted because we were eligible to start incurring costs back to last September. So that's right. Change in the kind of the operations, director of business operations. So Rhiannon McNair started in the role in late August. So we moved to the upstairs. So the critical functions, developing a customer engagement strategy on signing up new clients, and basically turning leads into active customers. So our database that we have of leads, converting that actually into customers. And secondly, developing a marketing strategy to promote various service to our available customers. So that's on sites and business wireless fiber, and we engage people with initial information and the follow-up information. Big things about that. Developing internal business operations, including bringing various systems and to municipal platforms. So there's a lot of different tools that are being used here, and it's really fine-tuning those tools to make it more efficient, as well as kind of internal program evaluation and development to ensure that we have the needed human resources to provide the level of service to meet customer expectations. So as we begin to ramp up additional staff that may be required on the technical side, but also kind of on the business side of the operation. Since kind of a customer dashboard, so in July, we had 96 customers on the fiber, 17.3%. We're at 36 now, so up to 18.6% fiber side. The kind of the build that's ongoing, kind of on the fiber side, the main strand has been run basically from Pictou to River John. So that initial strand is complete, so now it's on to rolling out fiber, and then the splicing work that comes with that. So the next project's in kind of queue to complete. The locker room loop, September of 2023. That would come on week to 2 weeks. So that's actually behind schedule by 4 weeks due to some flow replacements that needed to happen there. They did some. Up to Glasgow, the end of September was kind of the target for that, so an additional 456 homes there. So pretty much was into George Street Bridge. So that's kind of the where they're like basically, I think, to the brick is where they're pretty much at. So they've got that stretch from the brick to George Street Bridge, and I believe they're going under the bridge through existing conduit that's already there. That's the stretch that then left to do, and then picked up the Tony River 220 homes by the end of October. On the wireless side, so the current sites that have been verified and serviceable, so that means all the testing was done on the actual home, so there's 640 there. As of today, there are 95 completed installs. And there's 15 scheduled for this week on that. And basically in the last 3 weeks have done 40 installs. So that's customers that are in that database that contacted and ready for the install. I think so. Typically, they're trying on the fiber side. They've got the process down. When we first started, it was running, I think they said around 40 days. Now it ended up at 7. The time the work comes in, it's placed and installed. So that's well within industry standard. So that's just various improvements. Same way with on the wireless side. They've tried to improve the process because there's so many steps that has to be done per hour. So they've kind of broken it down. I guess they'll be able to explain to me the things that would impact operations. Those things are critical. They have to be ticked off. But then there are other things that are things that can be followed up on that. But anything that impacts service has to be done before the service is installed. Some of the documentation and stuff after the fact came coming after the fact. So they're trying to speed up the process there as well. The holding customers on thinking. So overall, processes are coming together where the on the business side of it, that was once we got the point of operation already inside now. It's something that is better driving that. So off the 900 that we have in the database by the end of this week, the address from 60 of those. I think so. So we're starting to see some good movement there.
Okay, thank you for that update, Brian, and I'll ask if you have a question.
Yeah, since we had the consultation session there at the Hillside Hall and put in for the internet for the hall, still nothing. It's in Hillside. It's there. It's costing us revenue because a lot of the business that want to come in, they want to have internet there. So I'm just wondering, is there any hookup when it's coming, or if we be looking at East Link or somewhere until we just do get around it?
So what they've been working on, as far as the kind of the way they've attacked the list so far is the ones that they can guarantee the service to. So they're kind of looking at those. They know they don't have to go to CTU testing or anything like that. They know they can get the service levels. So that's kind of where they've focused. They focused also on demand. A lot of demand was for some members. So where John actually had kind of the highest demand level, so that's why this kind of started on those sectors, because that's where the most people were in the database. So I'll make a note of it. I'll ask them tomorrow and possibly check you as to what the it's serviceable or not. So.
Go ahead, Don.
Yes, one question, Mr. Chair. First question is, how are we getting on with Nova Scotia Power in regards to work orders?
We had a meeting.
Yeah, so it's ebbs and flows, I guess we'll say. There are periods where we've turned around. The work orders are done, the work is completed. That's improved our process. But what happens in some cases, like it's a two-way street, I guess, like in the locker room, poles can be replaced. So after the make ready work done, there were a couple poles that were missed. So our crews won't go on for safety reasons. So then that goes to Nova Scotia Power. So it's like a change order, so it has to kind of go through their normal vetting process, but then even they run into some issues with pole replacements because they need permits from province to pole replacement. So that can add time. So anytime we get a hiccup like that, it extends like the locker room for really 6 weeks for replacement of 2 poles. So on that side of it. But generally the permits, we've seen some improvement in process, but it's still slow. It's still slow. So we are planning another meeting with them because we find every quarter when we have the meeting, we tend to see a little bit of improvement. But they do have crews that are dedicated to a certain, but the permit's not ready. There doesn't work, right? So we've seen some improvement, but not I think it's a great improvement. We have pitched to them a new project there. It's basically on Bell on the poles. It's a one-touch program. It's called. So we actually can hire a detailer. We can do all the make ready work, and then we just certify to Bell that the work has been done. They send somebody out, inspects it, and if it's done, you're good to go. So we have pitched that to Nova Scotia Power as well. Greatly expedite the work because we basically have all the detailing work done. Big thing. So our next meeting with them, we're follow up on that, but trying to push it with them and they say it's under control review, so trying to do that, and that would really impact our project.
We would be more in control.
Yeah, and it would honestly impact probably a year or 2 years off the project. So we are working on that.
You're nothing but-
Yes, my second question in regards to the wireless. We all know that, I guess we know that all of the towers have been brought. And we have test people in the various areas that are we're getting feedback from. But as a district, or I guess as a district, I'm wondering how many are actually up and running and serviceable in my district. I'm wondering perhaps if that's some feedback that each of us as councillors should have, because people are saying to us, well, what's the hold up? Who's been hooked up or how many are hooked up already?
Yeah, we did, we should be able to break down better on the tower. So they are kind of looking at how we report on basis fixing. So I know we make the Bailey's Pro is the next one that they're looking significant loading on that one because of demand factor that's there. So that's their plans to start working on those, and we have a bunch of properties in that area that are serviceable. I think so. But the numbers and stuff are down. They will kind of refine the report for that. And they kind of say, okay, on the River John Tower, we have 50 customers. So that is, and so they are going to refine that. So what's report? Hopefully. So.
Okay, go ahead, Council One.
Brian, this is not your direction to report, but I was notified that there's some concerns being raised on them concerning like this, and the three examples they gave me that they had, and it's apparently, I think it's their wireless is what they have, and they started out since just great. They had it for months, and they were getting like 25 plus average, but now all summer long it's encouraged to get it more strong. The speeds are the dying scale like 0.1 compared to the 25 plus we're getting at the beginning of the summer. And all three of them are basically saying the same thing. And I guess the hottest we want to stay, why is service dropping a little bit? And then secondly is that they can't get in front of any response back when this what's going on. The email, someone had emailed 3 times with no response. So it's a problem for lessons counts. So I'm just kind of worried that this is really bad PR, I think, for our internet service. And if there's any validity to it, we should get stuff up. Because like I said, I don't know what companies are with or any of that stuff, but if they're having problems with their students and not getting response, not getting service, that is the issue.
I will say I did talk to Ian in our department about that today, because I also received a copy of that same, what you're saying there. And the actual home location is in Green Hill, not that far from the Green Hill Tower. What happened was when they first put the service in February, there was no true leaves on the streets. And so they had real good service for 2.5, 3 months. The trees all leaked out. The trees leaked out, then the Green Hill Tower didn't see them anymore, so they went to park nothing. So Ian said they were sending a crew out today to help them to try and put a tower pole up on the end of the house. Okay. So they could get reception. Why, that's the part of why it went from great to nothing tenure, but why they didn't get any response. And that's what Wayne and I been talking to Brian about. And that's why Rhiannon is moving upstairs. We need somebody, a people person up there to talk to people. They need to be able to get a hold of us. It's all about customer service in the end of the day, any business around. And so that's concerning to me too. And so In fact, I have a meeting set up with Brian and Wayne is way better. We're meeting with some of the people from our department, say, how do we do better in customer service? Because I've heard that too from several people that I'm not, don't get back to. So, you know, we have a big improvement to make there. But something as simple as the leaves coming up the trees.
And that's fine, but getting that information out of them, how would be better than not hearing anything back and all, but I think that was the concern thing, so. Trying to sell this stuff, you know, we're getting bad PR up there.
You don't need
We don't contact people, we know, it's like you had poor property customer service, so that's just a concern when they had these examples taken to me. And like one of them even said, working from home, computer work isn't an option for us at the moment, given the care of speed, so sadly, we might have to switch. So it is a concern, it's very, very hard, not getting your service was a type of things.
I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Brian, I just know we did the there.
Yeah, no, I agree on the response back. And that's where, like on the technical side, they must have given them an LTE service, which my son agreed, but so still not fully on that would make sense, but
I think when you reach that, give a lot of site charity.
it should have. All of us should have been there, so it's how that's triage as well, and that's why put a person in there that can triage the emails, whether it's a technical or if the technical issue, technical people need to be on top of it. If it's a business operations side, then the business people need to.
So they call in whatever we can play, we go to somebody in it. She'll get all the calls and to concerns.
Yeah, there's the number. So there's a 1-800 number in the email. It should all be only two. Either being great, and so it should be picking up on it. So and then it should be assigned a ticket. And if it's a technical issue, should be it's a billing issue and the billing.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move along for our community announcements. Anybody have any community announcements tonight? Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, the Hillside Holiday Starbucks, Friday night kitchen parties up this Friday, 6:30 to 9. $5 to get in, lunch served, and the players are they get in free. Thank you.
Is this for anything? Okay, do we have any more community announcements? Go ahead, Phil.
Well, I guess the brief one that I'm going to mention, so the exhibition starts tomorrow. The most important thing with our exhibition is that the weather's going to be good, so hopefully the weather will be good and that some people can turn out from here. It's absolutely wonderful, but just pass the word around for each day is a big day for the kids.
That's tomorrow.
And last year, they were very, very lucky at the exhibition because they had weather. And it's all boils down to weather and volunteers. And the volunteers are getting less and less, but the people that are there working awful hard to keep it going. And there is some of the plans, some cloud and something right now, but things are going to brighten up. I hope and when you have people that just lived and breathed and all of a sudden they pass away, there's a big change, right? But as long as we get some volunteers and that people give donations and that donations help pay for things, and hopefully it'll run right. So, anything else you would want to propose? Say something.
The exhibition is at a pivot time. Esther mentioned the loss of a couple of longtime supporters. That's love. But also, it's my understanding that two of the longtime organizers, manager and president, this is their last year. They're both 80 or older. It's time. I know there's plans underway to make efforts to reorganize the committee. Last few months ago,
So they'll still do an exhibition next year. That's it.
I was talking to Pastor and I was thinking there, in the last week, they lost another person, and that's Melvin McKay, and I think that should go down on minutes here tonight, but Melvin McKay worked hard all his life for 4-H, has that pet and zoo, and just for young people who enjoy themselves at the exhibition. And he passed away this week. And, it's those type of people that made the exhibition a success for 100 years. Thank you.
And I might just add to that, and I was alluded to, but, you know, the two that passed away, Wood and Melvin, are certainly gonna be missed, but it was mentioned about the two older fellows who kept things afloat for a long while, and Jack Ferguson and Johnny Robinson, you know, an awful lot to the exhibition. It's time for people to take over, and they're working hard on that, I know, but it's not easy, and agriculture is not as big an industry in this county as it used to be. So, but it's still very, very important. Everybody talks about food prices in the grocery store. If we don't have our own agriculture, then we're only in that language. So I think this council owes a big vote of thanks to those who are gone, but also to Johnny and Jack. You know, well, they're still with us. I just want to join with you too and say that if people can get out, we encourage other people to get out to the exhibition, especially if you get this misty weather. There's still lots to see inside the barns down over the hill if you're into that stuff. You know, so try and encourage people to get out. Any other community announcements? Oh, sorry, I already did have your name down. Go ahead, Dan.
There's a couple new activities happening at the Tourist Community Center. It's a seniors fitness and wellness program. Wednesdays at 1:30. The program starts this Wednesday, I guess. Tomorrow 1:30 chair Zumba Gold, and Fridays 10:30 a.m. chair yoga. Stay strong and mobile with chair-based fitness classes. Focuses on flexibility, mobility, bone density, balance, cardio, and muscle strength. And it's a lot of fun. And it's put on by Monica Beltran. And Monica also, I know this will probably be a big hit for Chester. He'll go to Latin dance class. Most of that at the Glasgow Legion every Friday night at 7 o'clock. So I'm looking forward to seeing the moves down there. And Monica puts that on as well. So the mission for that, I think the chair yoga is $3, and the Latin dance class, you have to open wall of Chester. Couples $15, singles for 10. So you decide what you want to take. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Councilor Dean.
Andy just reminded me, I think it might be the same lady, she's starting tonight. In $750 for chair exercise for old people. See, not Chester. And I thought it was a small fee there, but I'll have more information on that. I haven't met this one yet, but I believe she's one of the last president. Thanks to the West line. The other thing I wanted to mention on community event, I was really mentioned, and I talked to Councilor Butler about this a couple weeks back. The Weavers Mountain Wind Power Project has received approval from the Environment Minister. I suspect that those bonus to see warehouse the Bowes property, highway, next to the highway. The good news is, and it is good news, that there's 16 wind tower sites on Weavers Mountain. That should be, once they're erected, very visible from the highway and the right as you pass over Weavers Mountain or thank goodness. All 16 are picked again. One of them by what the width of this road. That's a good count. That's good news for us. That's good news for our taxpayers. We'll receive, but they're large machines. They each are capable of producing 6 megawatts, which is 4 times or 1 to 3 times the size of the ones that are on top of the house. Doesn't mean they're taller. why would you say have better generators for smart energy? But that's good news for our taxpayers. Now, the actual substation, which is substantial as well, it's actually a discount. So it's a good example of shared taxation with the counties, but we don't have a lot of areas in our county that have not already been exploited. But that was one of the last, the best, in terms of size and it should mean that I think we're getting something north of 700,000 a year now from wind towers. It should put us up over a million. But that's a good news story because it's hopefully replacing coal and it's contributing some dollars to the municipality.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other announcements? Not, I'll make my own. I did send out a pre-notice and I have received donations from many of you. And thank you for that. For on 2 weeks time, I guess it's a week later than everybody else in the country. On September 24th is the 43rd annual Terry Box Run. And I will be going in it, but I will be walking at best. And as I said in the email, people, each year I try to do a memory of somebody. So this year it's memory of Megan Bragg, counselor from Westville that we lost July 31st. And so I will be going to visit my neighbors and thanks for your help and family and friends. And hopefully we can beat the 2,000 mark this year. But when you think of it, of all the people we know, every year there's new people on that list that we lost to cancer. And it's like a dark horse. There's no telling who's next. So research is really the only answer. Terry Fox did that 43 years ago. And ran across, or attempted to run across country on one leg. Most of us wouldn't attempt on 2 legs. And it's a great example of a hero in Canada. I think we were going to look for a hero that's not a politician or not a sports hero or never a real hero. And so keep in mind that date, and if any of you still want to contribute, as I still have a little room left in my hand. All right, thank you. And so we'll now declare our meeting adjourned and wish all our kids a good day at school tomorrow and the bus driver.
And the
And the teachers.
And parents.
Thank you. I'll write it down.
Yes.
Got your-
Take that.
Yeah,